At the beginning of the week, Stefon Diggs signing with the New England Patriots as the Patriots continue restoring their roster. This Restoring the Roster segment is brought to you by Blue Sky Restoration Contractors. If your home or business is damaged by a property disaster, call Blue Sky first. With locations across New England, they'll take care of everything from beginning to end. Visit goblusky.com. That's B-L-U, no E, BLUsky.com. Blue Sky Restoration, restoring your property and your life for a brighter tomorrow. Stefon Diggs, New England Patriot. Cerrone, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm glad they got it done, but I'm surprised that they the length of the deal. I would say last time we was talking, it was rumors of the 1 year, $16 million type deal, and to find out that it was multi-years, and the fact that they got it done, and I understand we can go back and forth about what he can do. But what he has left physically, what people think about him, on the sidelines, off the field, all that other stuff. I'm happy for them that they went and got the guy. They say, hey, it's a chance we're willing to take. We got to swing here. We got to swing big here. And I'm glad they went and got their guy. I'm glad he signed with the Patriots. I think that's a good look for them around the league. And I'm just glad overall that they got this done. How it works out over time will tell. But I'm glad they went out and they addressed their need. They targeted their guy. They got their guy. They closed the deal and got their guy. Got him in the building, closed the deal. So I'm happy for them that they got it done. I don't know how it works out, 7 months from now, but I'm glad they went out and got their guy.
Well, I don't even know. You talked about the contract, that this is one like they definitively lost. And we had talked about this, and it's still true, right? At a certain point, they were going to have to understand they maybe weren't going to get the best contract and go out and overpay a player.
Yeah.
The initial number is pretty eye-popping. 3 years, $69 million. Like I audibly said, wow, alone by myself when I saw that. But then you get the details right. $26 million guaranteed. It sounds like it's a year-to-year deal, certainly, and out after the first 2 years. They can get out after the first year as well. They'll eat a little bit, but it's not an unrealistic amount. So it's a win-win. Right, I saw some people where it's $69 million for a receiver coming off a torn ACL. If he gets near that $69 million, like nobody's going to be complaining.
Yeah,
there's $500,000 in incentives, at each level. I think it's 70, 80, 90, 100, or 80, 90, 100, 110 catches, something like that. There's another $500,000 up to $2 million bonus for yards. So and that's each year.
Right.
So there's $12 million of that if he's like a 1,000-yard plus receiver all 3 years, which is great. That would absolutely be worth it. So
that's right.
I think what the Diggs signing represents to me, and you're going to hear me gush about it a good amount on the show because I do like the move. We are, relatively speaking, I want to be clear about that, about where the team is right now. T. Higgins, and they never had a shot, but T. Higgins would have been a better addition. DK Metcalf would have been a better addition. I will take Diggs over Cooper Kupp. I've said that. Over some of the other guys that are available right now. Keenan Allen. Yep, Amari Cooper. Debo, honestly, I think this is a better move than adding Debo.
Yeah.
Because so it would have been great if they could just get the guy, no questions, obviously. Diggs has questions, and mainly it's the injury. I'm not worried about the off-the-field stuff, and we can get to what he said on Friday. I thought he did a really good job on Friday at his introductory press conference. That aside, the injury is the question, and it's a legitimate question. He's 31 years old, coming off a torn ACL. I know that there's that report from Schefter that he might be back week 1. That would be, I think, about a 9-month turnaround because he's not going to go from 0 practices to playing week 1. That would involve him, I would assume, coming back at least at the end of camp for a couple of weeks to get on the same page with Drake May. So I don't know about that. There's questions there. But if he is healthy, he is on paper the wide receiver we've been wanting the Patriots to add for a few years now. He is a guy that when he is out there is going to dictate coverage, is going to be able to win when defenses are focusing on him and opening things up for other players on the field. This is how they had to get that guy. Diggs is better. It's a lot better than not signing anybody. So I like this move. I think there's upside. There's ceiling to it. It very well might not work out. and they're going to have to eat some money and go on from there. And even in the long term, right? If they'd added Higgins, that box is checked. If they'd added Metcalf, 26, 27 years old, that box is checked. We're still going to be doing wide receiver in the draft next year. This is a bridge, even if it is a very good bridge. But if he works out, Cerrone, best wide receiver since the Patriots had Edelman, and I don't know that it's close. Jacoby Myers had a couple solid seasons in there, but there's legitimate upside with this move.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. He is the best since Edelman. Healthy Edelman. Peak Edelman. He's the best you've had since then, and I don't think it's even close. And I think what he does when he's out there, if he's out there week one, that's amazing. And I think if he's out there week one, I think they got to steal, put it like that. I think the thought that we all had was he'd be available around Halloween or something like that, mid-October. But if you can get this guy and he can play a full season with Drake May, okay, now you really have something. And one thing I was going to add, you was naming the guys that could have been available, whatever. Yeah. You heard the talks of somebody like Brandon Aiyuk coming off the similar injury, I think around a similar time. I know he's younger, but now you're paying him, what does he get, $30 million a year or something like that?
It would depend how they figure out the money with San Francisco. I will say on Aiyuk, Diggs, and look, I haven't seen the medicals but reading everything that's out there, best I can tell, with Diggs, it was the ACL, that's it. And there wasn't any more extent. As far as ACL injuries go, it wasn't that bad. Aiyuk, I believe, also tore some other ligaments and things like that. So it's not
ACL, MCL, something like
MCL
that.
Yeah. So I'll pull it up here in a second. But you're trading off the age for Aiyuk's injury was more severe, and that's why with Diggs, like, I don't know, I'd be pretty surprised if he's back week one. Like the record, if you want to call it that, is Adrian Peterson, 8 months. And he won an MVP the next year, which we don't talk nearly enough about how impressive that is. Just as an aside. Edelman, I think, was like 9 months, and he had a pretty solid season after, around the same age. I've seen some people make that comparison, so that's encouraging. It would be an aggressive timeline. It's not impossible, but it would be a very aggressive timeline for Diggs to be back week one. I think you look at earlier, if he's really ahead of schedule, maybe he comes back at the end of camp very loosely, opens the season, IR designated a return, and then he's back in early October, I think is the best realistic scenario.
Yeah, and I think what the team does to start the season will dictate that too. It's like, okay, if you can, the schedule, I would say the schedule is favorable. It's easier than last year. And you see a lot of people looking at that like, oh, we can win some winnable games here. If they start out winning a few games, it's like, okay, we can push him back, another week. We don't have to rush him back. You know what I'm saying? If they come out pretty aggressive. But look, I just think what I was saying about him and Aiyuk, people talking about the money. Well, you'd have been paying more money, I think, for a guy who with the worst injury, even though he's younger. But Aiyuk, unlike Diggs, we've seen Diggs in different situations still produce. We see him as the second option produce. We've seen him as the number one guy produce. He's dominant in Minnesota. He was doing his thing. Buffalo was doing his thing. Aiyuk, we all had questions of what he looked like without the offense that he had around him. And last season, you saw some of the injuries on offense before he got hurt, and his numbers were way down last season. And it was like, man, what would that look like if he was playing for the Patriots right now in their situation? But all in all, look, I think they got the best guy that was available. I think he fits a huge need. I think would be good for the younger guys to learn from or whatever and pick up different things in that room. Make it easier on Drake May, give him a different target other than the tight ends. And I think he just kind of, like a basketball player, kind of spaces the floor for everybody else and gives everybody else an opportunity to eat. Now, I think his thing is people look at him as his fiery guy on the sidelines, whatever. I think he just wants to win football games. I don't think he just wants 12 catches and lose. I think he wants to win a football game. So if everybody's eating and they're winning games, I think he'll be happy with that. Similar to the way he was in Houston last year. He had good numbers, but he understood, man, with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, we're all going to eat here as long as we're winning games. And I think that's all that's going to really matter to him. So if they come out winning enough, and, he gets his touches, everybody else eats, I think he'll be fine. I think there'll be a pretty solid offense.
Real quick, 49ers.com back in February noted that Aiyuk tore his ACL, MCL, and other ligaments. Jesus. That's what it says. So, yeah, obviously, doesn't mean he can't come back, but a more significant injury. Yeah. You talked about some of the leadership stuff. I'll have a piece up, probably going to hit publish during this break. It's pretty much written, about kind of how Aiyuk talked about that on Friday what he wants to do for Drake May, what he wants to do for the younger receivers. I thought he came across like a player that has learned a lot about leadership and about his role as a voice in a locker room over the course of his career. He was a captain in Buffalo with a young quarterback in Josh Allen, captain in his first year last year in Houston. I thought he said all the right things, right? It's one thing to say that. You still got to act on it. But I liked a lot of what he said about, in particular, he was asked how he can help the young guys. And he kind of pushed off the X and O stuff. He said, yeah, the X and O's are there. He talked about teaching them how to deal with the highs and lows of the NFL, which, boy, does that sound like something this group could use. What did you make of that, or just anything that stood out to you from what he said on Friday?
Well, the first thing that stood out was the things he was saying, whatever. But I'm wondering, did this type of injury scare him? Like, did it come with a little humbleness? Like, you know what? This thing could end tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like, the highs and lows. That's a low of low to watch your season end like that. You go to a team, Super Bowl, expectations, and then bam, it's just like that. It's done. Then you watch what happened to Tank Dell, that crazy injury he had in that game. And you're sitting there in a room, a couple guys like, man, Nico Collins was coming off a bad injury. And you're all sitting around like, man, this thing could end tomorrow. Did it change his perspective? And did it kind of humble him? 30 years old, bad injury. You know what? Let me not slow down a little bit, but let me understand what's really going on here and understand this is a privilege and not my right. And I think that type of information he can pass on to the younger guys. Like, hey, man, this thing can end tomorrow. You can get released tomorrow. And looking at this Patriots wide receiver room, there's going to be some guys that are going to get left off this team if they go out and draft some guys, which we all expect. Pick up another veteran. You just added the kid from Buffalo. You added Stefon Diggs. You add one in the draft. All of a sudden, that wide receiver room, you're all looking around like, man, which one of us is going to go? So I think having somebody to come in with a little more perspective on what this NFL life is really all about, I think would help these guys, not just the wide receivers, but that whole offense if they're all around, or around him enough.
So he's actually, I was looking this up yesterday. Again, will be in the piece that will be up in about 10 minutes. He's their second most experienced player on offense now. In terms of games played, in terms of years. Morgan Moses has him beat. Morgan Moses played 166 games. Diggs has played, it's just over 140. And then Austin Hooper's in the 130s. Those are their three most. But Diggs he's the veteran in the room.
Yeah.
He's the veteran in the room. And if he can embrace that role, which it sounds like he did in Houston, if he can embrace that role, look, he's got to produce on the field, period, full stop. But if he can also bring some professionalism and get that offensive side of the ball going, especially the wide receiver room, and then obviously you want him working with Drake as well. And he mentioned he's excited to work with Drake because of the similarities with Josh Allen. What a bonus, what a boost this signing could be. So a lot of potential. We'll see. There are a lot of ifs in there, but there's a lot of potential as well in this signing, and they can make it even better if they continue to upgrade the offense in the wide receiver room. Is that going to happen? Is another move coming on offense for the Patriots?